Project Veritas has another leaked video of a Twitter exec making comments about Elon Musk's Asperger's and free speech. Let's listen.
Well, right now we don't make profit, so it's going to say ideology, which is what's led us to not being profitable. The rest of us who have been here believe in something that's good for the planet and not just to give people free speech. Because again, like, these people really do believe in what we're doing. These are the policies we've put in place for misinformation or mislabeling media or whatever.
Yeah.
Why do you think this should be taken down?
Yeah.
Like, those are the questions they're going to ask him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's going to be hard for him to be like, oh, because people should make their own decision. It's like, no, but people don't know how to make a rational decision if you don't put out correct things that are supposed to be out in the public. As an advertiser, as my business, is what I do every day and why I go out, is like, we want it to be as fair and transparent and accurate as possible.
Yeah.
And if that means there's a level of censorship to make it correct, quote unquote, again, and what does correct mean? I guess like it just kind of goes into the idea of like, well, what is correct? If we're implementing all these rules that and Elon wants to dismantle them, then technically our ideology has led us to not making money because we're not making money. And Elon wants to turn it the other way so that we can make money. There's a statement they need all 7,000 people to say. And so they can't like tell us that like the real truth. He has Asperger's.
Yeah, I know that.
So he's special. You're special needs. You're literally special needs. So I can't even take what you're saying serious.
Musk replied to the video saying, Twitter exec trashing free speech and mocking people with Asperger's, which is what's going on in the video, which is a very, very bad look there. And I think it's terrible that someone who works at Twitter has that mindset. It's a mindset we completely disagree with. I still can't, entirely get around the whole, you're being secretly recorded. You're, maybe complaining about your job and at work, not in an environment where you'd necessarily think, obviously
over
that's
cocktails,
the point. That's
over what seemed like a lot of cocktails.
A lot of cocktails, which obviously is exactly what O'Keefe tries to do. He's doing that intentionally. His view is that he gets people to, reveal the truth. Again, we kind of already know everything there about the kind of person who works at Twitter and how they feel about these things. So I don't love the idea of just embarrassing people when they're out drinking and thinking that they're, free to kind of complain about their jobs. Probably a lot of people would complain about their jobs under, certain circumstances like that. So, that aside, but it is, he should not, don't make fun of people with Asperger's, obviously.
Right, but this is a little bit different because, Twitter has denied that they've ever done any sort of censoring, that they're not ideologically bent. They've denied it over and over and over again. And now you have an executive on camera saying, well, we do it, essentially. So, I mean, so with the other guy that they caught on tape for Project Veritas, I don't even know who, I think he was a guy that only works at Twitter part-time, or some people saying that he only clocks in like 4 hours a week or something like that. This is a little bit different because this was a lead client partner. This was somebody who is selling advertisement, from what I understand, on the platform. And if that's the case, then they are admitting that at least they have a culture of censoring, that they don't trust us to make up our own minds, that they have to feed us the information because they're saying, well, you're not smart enough with the information, all the information out there to make the right choice. We have to help you make right choices by giving you right information. So I think it's actually kind of a big deal that they're admitting it, at least over cocktails, to Project Veritas, I suppose.
Yeah, but what if the person, but my only thing, what if the person asking those questions is trying to elicit that response, and he, just because he's saying that to this person's not being honest. The Project Veritas person obviously is not being honest. So then, what if this person is just telling him what he wants to hear? What if this person being like, oh my God, are you taking care of all this disinformation I'm so scared about? And the guy's like, oh yeah, we're not going to let people say whatever they want. Like, he's saying that to put maybe he was portraying himself as a liberal, so he's trying to reassure them. So that's the only you can't if it's under false pretenses to begin with, you have to be a little skeptical of the answers you get.
except that we have a lot of other verifiable like facts and information and just experiences that make us believe what he's saying is true.
Well, right. I basically think we already have confirmation that they do that without even.
Well, what is the argument here actually for what we think the standard should be at Twitter? Is it that it should be a wild, wild west where there's absolutely no content moderation whatsoever?
No, I don't think anybody really thinks that there should be no content moderation.
Even Elon Musk doesn't think that, right?
I don't think anybody really believes that there should be no content moderation whatsoever on any platform. I think everybody agrees that illegal, harmful acts, if it's illegal, for example, it shouldn't be on the platform. Twitter, though, is actually pretty relaxed. I mean, they allow pornography, like fairly explicit pornography on their platform. I guess you could choose to see it or not, or however they do their filter on that. But I don't think people are advocating for, whenever there's this free speech discussion, that's where it always tends to go. People always say, well, you can't be a free speech absolutist. Although,
that's what
you can.
Well, that's
you're right,
why I'm just trying to pin down that, like, it doesn't sound nice when the guy is like, well, we can't just give everybody free speech. And I understand that it's in this broader cultural context. But if we just stop kind of talking in a way that's reactive to what that guy says and say affirmatively what we hope to happen on the platform. Even Elon Musk has said, well, of course, there has to be content moderation guidelines. So what does that look like? I think that's a harder task than most people will admit, and why we're exactly in this conversation. Because at some point, somebody has to decide.
And it doesn't have to be the First Amendment, as you're pointing out. Like, free speech is what the government is allowed to stop you from saying is that's a different bar than what a private company's.
Right. And the issue, I think, with Twitter has been the lack of transparency, and with Facebook and a lot of these apps has been the lack of transparency, and the fact that, yes, there are at times these political motives we've talked about a lot in the last week that also hurt the left and the right. The people outside of the establishment get really dinged by these sorts of things. And so I do think that sometimes there can be an alarmist sort of reaction when people are like, well, of course there can't be free speech, when in fact, that is not the part that's terrifying. We all understand that that's the baseline of any of these content moderation platforms. The question is, who decides and how do they decide, and can they do so in a transparent way?
Right. And we've had guests on the show trying to have their own social media platforms. There was he's a Trump advisor, Jason Miller, right? And he was, I forget which one he was involved with, and we put a couple questions. He said, yes, it's going to be a free speech site. Like, well, what about this? What about that? Well, not that. And like, there is, where the line is, it's sometimes not clear, or where the line ought to be drawn. People have different ideas, but I think what I am excited about with Musk is that he seems to want to draw the line a little less soon, or allow more kinds of political conversation. I think that would be helpful.
I think it's better to maybe say free ideas, a platform that's free for any idea, rather than just saying free speech, because I do think we get kind of caught up in the minutia of what that means exactly.
Right.
And then it's like, look, nobody's really advocating for absolute free speech, but certainly a freedom of exchange of ideas, that is what's missing. And that is what the Twitter executive is basically saying. Yeah, we don't want that, though, because if we give you the ability to exchange ideas freely, you're going to harm the planet. Is essentially
because spamming messages are free speech, right? They're not illegal under the First Amendment. Elon Musk says he wants less of that on the platform, and I think that's absolutely fine. And it's good that you can make some content decisions that would not be ones the government could make, that to improve the user experience. The problem is many of the platforms have gone way too far and are policing beyond, preventing us from being able to think of all the issues we've had with YouTube, preventing us from having discussions that would be in the public interest that we ought to be able to have. So
just reporting news. Can't even just report news. But Musk did tell the All In podcast on Monday that he plans to vote Republican in the upcoming elections, despite voting for Team Blue historically. He also stated that he considers himself a moderate. So
another immigrant, replacing the native population, but actually having right-wing views, as it turns out. Yet more examples of that. All right, well, coming up, authorities have uncovered a trove of messages from the Buffalo shooting suspect, so we'll definitely discuss that with our rising panel.